call the meeting to order. Want to recognize any alternates who may be with us this evening? Fair enough. Consider approval of meeting minutes. Anyone wish to make a motion to approve those prior minutes?
Move approval. This is Pat.
I'll second. This is John Thomas.
Thank you, John. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Setting next board meeting date. It looks like July 8th, tentatively at Coralville. Is that pretty much agreed with what you have there, Kent?
It is. That is the last Wednesday prior to our TIP being due to the DOT. And I've got on there in Coralville because they would be next on our rotation, but I have a feeling we might be doing the same thing we're doing this evening. So we'll just call it tentative on July 8th, probably a Zoom meeting.
Okay, we'll make it a surprise for them.
That's right. Thank you.
Next item is public discussion of any item not on the agenda. Anyone present wishing to make any comments, or you're welcome to do so. Not hearing any, we'll close that. Section 3, administration. Consider action regarding participation in the federal aid swap, whereby state funding could replace federal funding for local road, bridge, and projects. Can you do a brief review on that, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Kent Ralston. I'm the Executive Director of the MPO. As many of you on the board will remember, back in 2018, House File 203 was signed into law, permitting the Iowa Transportation Commission to allow what's commonly referred to as a federal aid swap. And the swap, as we'll call it, generally is a process whereby road and bridge projects that would have normally been funded with federal transportation dollars are instead swapped for state funding with the goal of streamlining local projects. For the past 2 years, we have to discuss this annually, and for the past 2 years, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee has unanimously recommended participating in the swap. However, as many of you will remember, after lengthy discussions, this board ultimately voted to opt out of the swap both in 2018 and 2019. Of the board's many concerns, Davis-Bacon wages, worker safety, and lack of data supporting the benefits of the swap were central to the discussions. And as I understand it, our MPO as well as Bi-State Regional Commission out of the Quad Cities are currently the 2 MPOs in the state that are opting out of the swap. Similar to previous years, unless our MPO chooses to opt out of the swap, the DOT is going to assume that we want to opt in. So we go through this process annually. Unfortunately, since the swap policy didn't take effect until October of 2018, that would have been the first bid letting of projects, there really isn't that much data available. And this question has come up for the last few years with this board is, what can the DOT provide to us to let us know basically the benefits of the swap? And again, I contacted the DOT and that information just isn't available because there aren't enough projects that have actually been closed out since those first lettings back in 2018. The DOT has, however, indicated, as they did for the last few years, that the project development timeline has been shortened by about 6 months. And while they can't put a specific cost to that, there certainly is some financial benefit there and some savings to our communities. I attached in your packet the meeting minutes from both your March 2018 as well as your 2019 meetings, as well as the information we received from the DOT about the final swap policy, again from the DOT. And the last thing I'll say is just keep in mind that this only affects the surface transportation block grant funds that we receive, not the transportation alternative program funds. And just a quick reminder, the STBG funds, I'll call them, the surface transportation block grant funds, is the larger pool of funding that we allocate every other year in the neighborhood of $6 to $7 million. So it's the bigger pool of money. The transportation alternative programs funds is more in the $1 million to $1.5 million range. So we can swap the larger pool and not the smaller pool is the takeaway. Having said that, again this year, as they did in the last several, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee did unanimously approve opting into the swap again for the third year in a row. And if I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all have about opting in or opting out.
Questions from any member of the group?
This is Lisa Green Douglas. So Kent, my recollection is that rather than just finding out how many projects they'd had or such, that we were asking specifically for information regarding wages and what I was very interested in knowing what regulations were being bypassed. And it seems like that information can be made available without there being a wealth of act projects. We could look at historically at what has happened. I feel comfortable in continuing to not opt in at this point without those data, though, because you're locking ourselves out forever. And until which time we have more information, I think that, I particularly am still wanting to opt out because I think that I'm super concerned about the regulations, the bypassing of regulations. So that's.
This is Pauline. I'm in the back corner up there. I agree with Supervisor Green Douglas because I think we still don't have enough supportive data to go with this program. And if all they're saying is that it saved 6 months on a project, is that because we bypassed these federal regulations and those regulations are put in place for a reason? Usually it's for safety reasons, and you just can't put a cost on saving lives or having a safe project. So I would say opt out.
Any other opinions?
Yeah, I don't, this is John Thomas. I too am concerned that we still don't really have the data. And in reviewing the background material from the last two discussions we've had on this, it seems the comments that some of us have made still hold true with respect to worker safety, making sure that wages are not are held to a prevailing wage. The use of the certified payroll would still be in place, things of that sort. So I will continue to support not opting in.
Other comments?
Yeah, can you hear me? This is Steve
Yes,
Burton.
Steve.
I haven't changed my mind on the other way. I've been voting to opt in. I've had discussions with our city engineer. I don't know if everybody's talked to their respective engineers or not, but just the amount of paperwork and the amount of time savings, there is a dollar that can be put to that. He couldn't give me a specific dollar amount. But the other point is wages. He's assured me the wages in the area are competitive. They have the same wage, whether that requirement or the federal rule applied or not. And I have no doubt the city of Tiffin on a project where we would have federal funds would save money by going with just the state rules. So I'm not going to change my vote this year. I've been voting to opt in, and I'll probably continue. I will do that again.
I'm also voting to opt in, as I did in 18 and 19, in speaking to our city engineer. And being a small city, I agree with Mayor Berner that time saved, and the city engineer says 3 to 6 months, and more paperwork. Sometimes it can just delay our project or make it not happen for a while. So I'm going to vote the same to opt in.
The comments?
Mayor, I'm going to continue to be in favor of opting out of this. There's not a reason for us to get into it yet. And I'm fine with where we've been for the last couple of years until we have other reasons.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I agree. My position has not changed. I will still be voting in favor of opting out at this time.
Yeah, me too. Also, nothing has been changed. I will vote the same way that I did in the 18 and 19, which is opting out.
Pat?
I agree. Nothing has changed, and I will once again vote to opt out.
Any other final comments? Chair would entertain a motion of some type from the floor.
Yes, I put a motion to opt out. Is that enough?
That'll get by for right now.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded to opt out. As we have a diverse point of opinion, Kent, is there a way that you can do a roll call for us, please?
I think a roll call might be a little difficult on our end, just from looking at the screen, but I would just say, since the motion is to opt out, we could just do a voice. If you're in the negative, I think you would just state your name and that you're against the motion, if that makes sense to everybody.
Yes.
The motion is to opt out. If you want to opt in, if you could just state your name and that you're voting against the motion, that would help.
Louise Fromm, I'm voting to opt in, so I'm against voting to opt out, if that makes sense.
That does. Thank you.
You are muting, Mayor Steve.
Laura?
I'm in favor of the motion to opt out.
Steve?
Steven, mute.
I'm back. Okay, sorry. Steve Berner, yeah, I'm gonna vote no against.
Okay. Megan?
I vote to opt out.
Let's see. Myself, I'm going to vote for opt out. Lisa?
I support the motion to opt out.
Susan?
Support the motion to opt out.
Who am I missing that I just see the names on the board?
Pat Hayden, I support the motion to opt out.
Janice Weiner, I support the motion to opt out as well.
Pauline Taylor, I support the motion to opt out.
And this is Erin Shane. I'm abstaining from a vote on this matter.
John Thomas, I'm supporting opting out.
Last chance to vote. By my calculation, I have 11 supporting the motion to opt out, 3 to opt in. So we will maintain our stance in opting out of the program.
Yep, I think that's good. We had 11 in, 2 to opt out, and 1 abstaining. That's correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. B, consider approval of coronavirus aid, relief, and Economic Security Act funding allocations for local transit agencies.
Brad Newman, Associate Transportation Planner. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or the CARES Act, was signed into law in March. The CARES Act allocated $25 billion to urbanized area recipients of Section 5307 funding, which we are one of those. The funding is 100% federal, requiring no match, and is used to support capital, operating, and other eligible expenses. Operating expenses incurred beginning January 20th of 2020 are eligible, including expenses to maintain transit services and personnel costs due to the reduced service. Iowa DOT has received just under $36 billion, or 36 million, sorry, in CARES Act funding, which includes just over 8.3 million for the Mpojc urbanized area. The funding apportionment to Iowa City Transit, Coralville Transit, CAN Bus is required to follow the Section 5307 requirements. So after discussions with the transit managers, it's recommended that the MPO use the same apportionment formula used in January to apportion our 5307 funding. That formula is based on 4 factors, including operating costs, locally determined income, revenue miles, and fare revenue. Attached to your memo is the proposed CARE Act apportionment. The FY20 Section 5307 funding table is also included for a reference. It includes the same multiplier that we use for the CARES Act. Once the board approves the apportionment, we will prepare the 3 grants, we'll submit a split letter to the Federal Transit Administration, letting them know how we apportion the funding, and we'll prepare the grants for operating. The hope is to get the funds this fiscal year. The process is a lot quicker now. They're trying to get that money out there as fast as they can. So staff is requesting approval of the CARES Act apportionment, and the Technical Advisory Committee last week unanimously recommended approval. Are there any questions?
Questions for Brad?
Brad, this is Chris. You said that money would be out this fiscal year, so by the end of June?
Well, that's the hope. We'll get those applications in. We have to wait for the board to approve the split, and then we'll get those applications in. And the word is it has to go through the same process as 5307, which includes Department of Labor. And that's usually a 30-day review, but they've shortened that up considerably. So the hope is to get them by the end of June, yes.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Brad?
Brad, this is Erin. Is there a timeline associated with spending the funds?
With spending the funds, no. It's one of those, they want you to spend it as quickly as you can, but there's no deadline. They just don't want it sitting there for years. The longer it sits, the more somebody else is going to want it. So, but no, there is no timeline.
And Aaron, this is Kent Ralston. Brad's correct. There are several transit agencies that have already expressed interest in spreading it out maybe over a few years to cover the shortfalls. But like Brad mentioned, it's certainly something that you may want to use sooner than later. And I think in hearing from the transit managers, it can be spent pretty easily, it sounds like, because ridership is so low, unfortunately.
Yeah, we can use it very readily. But yes, I just didn't hear officially whether there was a timeline or not. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brad? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the Coronavirus Aid Relief and the Economic Security Act funding allocations for local transit agencies. Anyone wish to establish that motion?
So moved. Janice Weiner.
Second, Azad Saleh.
Moved and seconded. Any final discussion or questions?
Can you have a second from someone from the same entity?
Oh, yeah.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Unanimous consent to pass the approval. Next item is transportation planning. Let's see who we have on deck for that one. Kent, that looks like yours.
Yes, sir. So Thank you. Attached in your packet is a draft copy of the Mpojc FY21 Transportation Planning Work Program for your review. The work program includes all locally requested projects we receive from member entities, as well as general projects and procedures required by the Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration, and the Federal Transit Administration. And besides being a requirement by those organizations, we also rely on the work program, obviously, to do just that, to manage our data collection and workflow throughout the year. What we'd like from the board this evening is that you please review the document and let staff know if you would like to see any modifications before we forward this on to those organizations. And it is due at the end of the month. As always, we will continue to take requests for additional projects throughout the year as they come up. And if there's any major projects that would disrupt the work program, we'll bring those back to this board for approval prior to including them in our annual activities. At their May 19th meeting, the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval. And if there's no questions, we'd like you to consider approval of the FY21 MPO work program.
Questions for Kent?
I'll move. Burner, move for approval.
Okay. Motion made to approve the resolution by Burner. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
And seconded. Final discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Unanimous consent on the resolution. Now's the time for a public hearing and consideration of amendments to the adopted fiscal year 2020-23 Mpojc Transportation Improvement Program on the STIP, expanding project scope to include utilities. The first one is Iowa City IMV Road Construction Project. Anyone want to speak specifically to that project? The second one is the Coralville Iowa River Trail Construction Project. Anyone wish to speak in regards to that project? Hearing no comment, close the public hearing. This will be considering approval of the draft 21 through 24 Metropolitan Plan Transportation Improvement Program projects. Anyone wish to establish that motion?
Move approval, Pat Hayden.
Second by Susan Mims.
Any final comments, discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Unanimous consent on the approval. Next is update on Metropolitan Johnson County 21 Transit Program of Projects. And it looks like Brad again.
Mayor, I think we may have skipped agenda item 4C. There's actually two separate TIP items. One was amendments to the 20 to 23, and then we also have consideration approval of the draft 21 to 24. So it's a little bit blurred there, but I think on number 4C, if Brad could give us an update, we should probably go through that one separately.
Okay, let's back up to B then. You need
B, we're good.
those two passed individually, correct?
Correct. I think we're okay on 4B. It was unanimous as far as what I heard, and I think we could move on to 4C if that's okay with the board.
Okay, the thing is, I don't think we did anything on 4B. It was 4C that we did something.
Okay.
So we'll back up to B. And so we need a motion to approve Project 1, Iowa City Road Construction Project.
So move by Muzahid.
Second, Louise.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Unanimous consent on number 1. Need a motion in regards to the Coralville Iowa River Trail construction project. Anyone wish to establish that motion?
So moved by Thomas.
Is there a second?
Second by Hayden.
Moved and seconded. Final discussion or comments? All those in favor of the Coralville project, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Now, technically, we passed item C, but why don't you go ahead and give us a rule on it there, Kent?
Yeah, let's do that. And sorry for the confusion. This is a little bit hard when we're not in the same room.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give you an update on the draft TIP. This is a document we do every year, and this is for the 4-year period of FY 21 to 24. The TIP includes all the federal and state transportation projects for both road and transit projects. The proposed 21 to 24 TIP projects are attached. And at this time, we bring these to you to make sure we've got them all programmed in the right times or the right year. We will approve the final in July. So this is just the project list. All those proposed projects for 21 to 24 are attached. And I just want to go through and review some of the changes that we've made. All 2020 projects that carry over to 21 are done automatically by the DOT. Any project that's under contract with the DOT is removed. We also included 2 new projects that were approved last spring that were not included in the 20 to 23 TIP because they were programmed out in FY 24. That they include the Iowa City's Dodge Street Improvement Project, which received over $3.7 million in STVG funds, and North Liberty Trail Project, which received just over $648,000 in Transportation Alternative Program funds. You'll notice there's a lot of Iowa DOT projects. Most of those are associated with the I-80, I-380 interchange project. North Liberty's Highway 965 improvement project from Zeller to Hawkeye Drive was renamed to Ranshaw Way and also received advanced construction, which was approved by the Iowa DOT, and that moved from FY 22 up to FY 21. The First Avenue project, the interchange project in Coralville, we did update those numbers. We received an update in the cost, the overall cost from Coralville's engineer. So that has been updated up to 38 million, I believe. We also removed one project, I think, that is listed currently, but it's the Johnson County IWV Road project. If you see in there, the IWV Road is in there twice. It's under Iowa City and under Johnson County. So we removed the Johnson County portion since Iowa City is the primary on the project. So it's just, we just can't double up the projects in the same TIP. We have updated, and it's not reflected in the projects here, but any local project, we included a 4% increase in the total cost of the project, not the amount that was funded, but just the total amount. So that'll be reflected as well. It's just not in there just yet. And we've been working with DOT, and they're updating their projects as well and their costs. The transit portion of the TIP includes the operating funding that you apportioned in January, and the projects approved in the transportation or the transit program of projects, including bus and equipment replacement. Some of Iowa City's bus replacements are waiting for DOT approval as far as the cost because they're wanting to replace with electric buses. And DOT has not updated the cost on those, so that's why they're shown as a different color. We're waiting. This is evidently the first time anyone has requested a replacement bus that is electric. So we're working with DOT to get those, and we'll get that updated before the final in July. And of course, Transportation Technical Advisory Committee unanimously recommended approval. So, and I think we've already approved it. So are there any questions on the TIP?
It would only be fair for me to ask the group if they want a reconsideration of their prior vote. If not, we'll go ahead and let the vote stand as is. Vote stands as is. Update of the Mpojc 21 Transit Program of Projects. Brad, that looks like yours again.
Yeah, we just talked about the program of projects a little bit as part of the TIP. We meant to have this to you at the last meeting. Since we didn't meet, we're including it here. The program of projects is something that is required of the 3 transit agencies to develop each year. It's required by the Federal Transit Administration. The program of projects for FY21 identifies proposed projects that could receive federal funding. The program of projects is also included in each system's consolidated funding application through the Iowa DOT. So that goes through the formal process for approval with each city council and the University of Iowa. So the board doesn't have to approve the program of projects, but since the funding for transit comes through the board, we just wanted to keep you apprised of what the 3 transit agencies were up to as far as federal funding. So, so we don't need any vote. And of course, these have all been approved through each council already. So are there any questions on that? I know we used to approve them, but we don't have to. So we're just kind of, it's an FYI for you.
Questions for Brad? Anyone wish to consider a vote or let that stand as he reports?
Just a report is fine on our end.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just an update was fine on our end. No vote necessary.
Okay, just wanted to make sure somebody had a question. Emily, looks like you have the next one.
Yes, Emily Bothell, Senior Associate Transportation Planner. The MPO's Long-Range Transportation Plan is a planning document that's designed to guide future transportation improvements and funding. And the plan, similar to the last, will be a compilation of plans and visions for all modes of transportation within the urbanized area. And it will span a timeline of 28 years, starting in 2022 and ending in 2050. It includes many elements such as the MPO's arterial streets plan and future street deficiencies as noted in your memo. The plan is required by the US DOT in order for the MPO to receive federal funding under the FACTS Act, and it's updated every 5 years through approximately a 2-year planning process. So this May, we are kicking off that process, and we will be looking for input and guidance from the board as we move forward. A very general timeline is noted in your memo, and this year, as compared to last year, we are starting off with project solicitation. So we'll be considering future transportation infrastructure to be considered for inclusion in the plan. And we will be ending with public comment this year. Next year and going into 2020, we will be seeking more public input, and then we'll be drafting the plan itself. So for those of you that were involved in the last update, you'll recall that we did a major overhaul of the entire plan structure. This go around, we intend to do more of an update to the content and the structure that is already there. So if you haven't had a chance to review the current plan, I would encourage you to do so. That can be found on our website. So if there are any questions about the plan or the general timeline, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Emily?
I was just going to mention quick, you know, the long range plan is very significant for us. As Emily mentioned, that first part of the plan that we'll be working on this summer is making sure whatever infrastructure projects the MPO wants to move forward with, and well, really any of the entities want to move forward with, we want to make sure that those projects are accounted for in the plan, because any of those major projects that want to receive federal funding through the MPO need to be reflected in the plan. And then there's sort of the second phase of this, which would be to, of course, circle back and update all the chapters in the long range plan for all the different modes of transportation. So whether it be bicycle and pedestrian, whether it be transit, whether it be the airport and aviation, all of those chapters need to be updated with goals and aspirations of all our communities. And what we'll do for about the next couple of years is, as we are drafting those chapters for the plan, we'll be bringing those draft chapters to you all for basically an update and really for semi-approval to make sure we're on the right track. And then, of course, you'll have to approve the entire document in a few years, but we want to make sure not to drop all of that on your lap at once. So I think this is the fourth long-range plan I will have worked on here at the MPO, which makes me feel like I've been around for some time. But we do have one of the better plans in the state, and as Emily mentioned, I think this will be more of a revision than an overhaul. So hopefully a little bit easier process than we've had in years past. And happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions for either one? Okay, other business.
Hi, this is Sarah Walsh with the MPO, and we're just going to do a real quick update for you on some bicycle and trails information. Normally, most of you know, in the metro area, we use the month of May. We participate in a national project called Bike Month and then Bike to Work Week. Because of the COVID virus, that's delayed this year. There'll be some events and celebrations in September. They may not be what they were in the past, but we'll do our best. And that is something we work on with a lot of nonprofits, local bicycle organizations, and of course the communities. Your rec programs are actively involved in that. But despite the lack of any organized events or programs, this period of, I don't know what you want to say, isolation, social or physical distancing, we've really seen an uptick in bicycle usage. And oops, there we go. But the first thing I want to note is just today, our new metro area trails maps arrived in. Every year we update the map for the metro area. And we produce 10,000 copies of the trails map. And so over the next week to 10 days, our interns will be delivering those out to local libraries, recreation centers. A lot of them go to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, who deliver them to local hotels and other places. They go to various university buildings, lots of local businesses, and of course, our nonprofit agencies. So look forward to see those trails maps. Every year we've been featuring on the cover a local group that's involved in getting people to bicycle. So the cover this year is from Think Bicycles, and the Bike Library provided that photo of what's called an overdue ride, and that's a slow roll ride that happens in better times once a week. A great event to introduce people to local trails and bike routes, and it's a non-competitive, easygoing, friendly ride, and they really do an exceptional job. So we wanted to feature that on the cover. Oops, sorry. Then we wanted to share with you all throughout the good months of the year, the nice weather of the year, our interns also help us going out and doing trail counts. We have some automated trail counters, and there was a lot of interest because like I said, we're seeing anecdotally a lot of people out on the trails. Now this is a combination. Our trail counters don't differentiate between bicyclists and pedestrians, but it's trail usage. This was in the month of April. So this is Clear Creek at the Camp Cardinal Road. This is down a little bit. This was back in April, and I'm guessing it was down a little bit because all of the students abruptly left town. And so that count would have been down a little. But I do hear that they have a bit of a traffic jam over in this area for people accessing the Woodpecker single track trail that's just off Camp Cardinal. North Liberty Trail at Forever Green Road, that's a big jump, doubling in usage. The Iowa River Corridor Trail at Terry Trueblood Park. If anybody has gotten down to Terry Trueblood, you know it's hard to maintain your physical distance. So many people are using that park and trail. And then the last one we have for the month of April, and again, these trail counts will go on throughout the summer and into the fall, but this is what the Waterworks Park entrance, you know, that's just north of I-80 on North Dubuque Road, and that is a huge jump in usage since 2018. So this is just to give you an idea what's happening out on the trails, and I think as an appreciation of the investment that all of our communities have been making into trails and what great usage they're coming into now during these unusual times. Then this is something we wanted to update you on with the Iowa City Bicycle Master Plan and the Metro Area Plan. There's a great emphasis on equity. And one of the areas focused on was attention to our immigrant population and to non-native speakers. We're becoming a very diverse community. And we also know that the university has students coming in from overseas. So we have non-native speakers or people who just maybe aren't familiar. Laws, just as they do for drivers, for bicyclists, laws and social norms are different in each country. And so we wanted to make sure that not only our native speaking, English speaking population knows how to use bicycles appropriately on the road, but that folks who speak other languages could have easy access to this. So we put together some simple rules of the road. And this is just the very basics for how to operate your bike safely on the streets. And we had that professionally translated from English into Arabic, Chinese, French, Spanish, and Swahili. These are available for all of our communities, for any nonprofit, for schools. Anyone can use these. They're available on the MPO website on the resources page, publications page. You'll find them there. If anyone's interested and can't find it, feel free to shoot us an email and we'll direct you there. We did these as a one-page document. Communities and organizations can put maps on the back. They can be used at bike rodeos, at any kind of event, or can be published larger as a poster, whatever is most useful to the agency that wants to use them. So that's all I have for you today. But even though we couldn't have Bike Month, we're staying busy getting things done that were identified in those bicycle master plans.
Any questions?
Sarah, this is Lisa Green. Yes, this is Lisa Green Douglas. I'm really happy to hear that you had it translated. I'm curious what professional entity provided the translations?
I don't have the agency's name in front of me, but they do all of the translations of City of Iowa City. I can get that to you, Lisa. It's a professional.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And they were really great to work with. I mean, this project is a little more complicated than it looks, and they were really great to work with.
It's really a big shout out for the translation. I really appreciate that. That's great. Thank you so much for including everyone. Yeah, that's great.
Other comments? Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Any other business? Hearing none, motion to adjourn.
So moved, Taylor.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Stay
Thank
safe.
you. Goodbye.